It's a strange distortion of language. It's a strange distortion of reality. I would encourage you all to get this clip, save it on your phone. Hey everyone, welcome to Chronicles of Clarity. I'm Michael Goff. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Today we have an amazing discussion, and that is Matt Walsh and a Q&A with a man who identifies as trans. And the discussion, of course, is there a female or male binary? Does that really exist? Or is gender fluid like so many progressives are claiming? Plus, we have Mr. Richard Dawkins, who will weigh in on this discussion. So let's jump right in. Give it over to Mr. Matt Walsh.
How would you define a woman? Because you've asked other people up here to define how we would define a woman. How would you define a woman, Mr. Walsh?
An adult human female.
And how doesn't a transgender woman fit that definition?
Female.
Because they're not female. They have, you said that you are a biological male, correct?
I said I'm transgender. I might be intersex for all we know. About almost as many people in the world are transgender as intersex, and a lot of people don't know.
Well, but that's a different conversation. Intersex, that's a genetic anomaly, that's a medical condition. So that's a completely different conversation. That's also not a third gender. That's a genetic anomaly that occurs within the sex binary of male and female. What you're saying is that a quote-unquote trans woman is a female?
By the definitions I'm familiar with, yes.
So how would you define female?
Through my training in healthcare, there are several different categories for how we define sex. People bring up chromosomes. People also bring up hormone levels. People bring up all sorts of other categories. Lots of people don't fit neatly into a gender binary, even people we don't consider to be intersex. It's a complicated spectrum.
It's not complicated, but you also didn't define. So what is a woman? What is a female? What do these words mean?
It's complicated, and I know you're not going to like that answer, but that's because there are no simple answers in human biology.
Let me ask you a question.
You guys,
hang
on. Just let me finish. You guys like to bring up high school level biology classes a lot. I get that a lot, but people who go on to more complicated biology classes will talk about sex as a spectrum.
It's not. It's not.
Well, biological researchers would disagree with you.
Well, then they're full of the ones that would say that. There are...
All right.
So the claim is by this transgendered EMT is that once you get into higher levels of biology, then the spectrum reveals itself to reality. Like us lower sentient beings can't understand it when a baby's born and we look at the genitalia saying it's a boy or a girl. That only works for peasants of intellectual acuity, not for those who really understand biology. But is that true? It's absolutely not. That's why we're here to clarify. And I know it's not true, not just from my interaction with the world, but also because we have Richard Dawkins weighing in on that exact point. Who's Richard Dawkins, you ask? Well, I just happen to have his biography right here, or his bio, I should say. Richard Dawkins is a British evolutionary biologist and author. He is an emeritus fellow of New College, Oxford, and was professor for public understanding of science in the University of Oxford from 1995 to 2008. In other words, Richard Dawkins in our day and age is the height of evolutionary biologists. There's no one on the planet, scientifically speaking, who has a higher rank, if you will. He's in a pool of very few experts. He sits and sat at Oxford University. He is exactly who this EMT is describing as the higher levels of biology and has real understanding. As an aside, Mr. Dawkins is also an atheist. So he's not trying to propagate the image of God narrative that us Christians would put forth. But nonetheless, he is an expert, a literal authority on biology. So what does he have to say? Let's listen.
It is a very odd phenomenon because I'm used to continua wherever I look. I mean, there's tall versus short, fat versus thin, old versus young. All these things are a smooth continuum. The one thing that isn't is sex. I mean, sex really is binary. There's no question about it. You're either male or female, and it's absolutely clear. You can do it on gamete size, you can do it on chromosomes. And so it is, to me, as a biologist, distinctly weird that people can simply declare, I am a woman, though I have a penis. That seems to me to be a strange distortion of language, because language is useful as something to express your thoughts clearly. And so I'm bewildered by it, and I was fascinated to read your book.
So not only, Mr. Dawkins, is it a strange distortion of language, it's a strange distortion of reality. I would encourage you all to get this clip, save it on your phone, and the next time you're having a discussion about the gender binary, just pull this minute clip out and just say, hey, can you watch this? Because, of course, he is at the higher levels of biology. So let's get back to our conversation with Matt and the EMT.
There are male gametes and female gametes. Oh, I had one last question. I just have one. I had one quick. Can you come back for 1 second? Because this is an important question. You said you're an EMT.
Yes.
Okay. If you're responding to a health emergency. Biological male, somebody with a penis, is having a medical emergency, and they say to you, "I think I'm having a miscarriage." Would you check them to see if they're having a miscarriage? Would you consider that a possibility for them?
Look. No, but that's because some people don't have body parts. Doesn't mean they're not a woman.
Okay.
That silence is a stunning admission. Just stunning. Because he can't answer it. Because he knows where the logic obviously points. And that is, there are distinctives in the male and female binary. That's what a binary is. They're distinctives. It's either one or the other. So, Mr. Dawkins, a moment ago, he was speaking to actually a journalist who has written a book on transgenderism. And this conversation continues. And it's interesting because you have to ask yourself, if when presented with a logic, people rail against this, what is exactly going on? And how far could this go? Like when you've been proved to be wrong in physical reality, how can you continue to believe something? Well, I think Mrs. Helen Joyce has something to say about that. Let's get back to her and Mr. Dawkins' conversation.
Helen, what do you think lies behind this odd distortion of reality?
So that was basically the question that got me into this in the first place. And I mean, I've been thinking really almost full time about this for about 5 years now, and I don't have a pat answer for you. I think, like a lot of interesting phenomena, it's a lot of things. I would say that when I started to write about it first, I quickly realised that this wasn't treated the same way as anything else. Like just asking very obvious questions, like, don't you think that if we allow people to self-identify their sex, this will lead to, for example, destroying women's sports or putting rapists in women's jails? People would turn this back on me and say, you think that trans people are predators, or you think that trans people are in bad faith, you're a bigot. And I hadn't experienced this before in, at that point, about 14 years as a journalist.
That's a willful misunderstanding. And
Yes, it is. It is willful misunderstanding. And I mean, I slowly became aware that what we were talking about here was an intensely linguistic movement. Like, there isn't a sense in which a man can become a woman, except linguistically. Like, yes, okay, he can have operations, and some people do. Most trans people don't have any operations, don't take any medicine, don't have any genital surgery. But that doesn't change your sex. I mean, the reason the female eunuch is called that is that Germaine Greer was pointing at the way that the man is seen as the full human and the woman is seen as the lacking human. She is a female eunuch. She's a man that you've castrated. But actually, female people aren't male people lacking something, or male people lacking something with a little grow bag that you pop a baby out of every now and then. Female people are their own category. Female and male are actually very profound categories. They're profound biological, evolved categories.
Well, evolutionarily, they have to be. The gift of giving birth is something that pervades the whole anatomy and physiology and psychology, actually.
Exactly.
Helen Joyce, bringing down the fire for sure. I loved what she had to say there when she said, there isn't any real sense in which a man can become a woman except linguistically. And that's what this whole debate is about. They're trying to control language. And by they, I mean ideologues on the leftist side, used to be called liberals. Now the Liberal Party is split. You have liberals and you have progressives. The progressives are trying to control the language because if you control the language, you control the narrative. And as she says, this is all language based. A man can't be a woman. All you can do is say it. But in reality, it doesn't compute. It doesn't actually happen. And so this is all part of the whole agenda, especially with like Canada codifying into law that it is a hate crime and having compelled speech into the law, and it's a hate crime if you do not use preferred gender pronouns. That's why Jordan Peterson has railed against this. This is a control for language. Remember that. That's what it is at its core. Also, Helen Joyce, I recommend her book. You can look it up. I'll try and put the link in my description below. Let's get back to the conversation where we're wrapping up at the end with Matt Walsh and the trans EMT.
Sounds like we've established there are some people who, in principle, can get pregnant, and there are some people who can't. So there's two categories, otherwise known as binary.
Lots of women can't get pregnant either.
Yeah, but they're still of the nature to get pregnant. The only
but
reason
they can't get pregnant.
Yes, but
truth matters, right?
It does. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Truth matters, and they can't get pregnant. That's the truth. So how are they still women?
Because they are for the same reason that I can rightly say that human beings have two legs. And if a person is born with only one leg, that doesn't call into question the statement that human beings have two legs, okay? A person being born with one leg doesn't mean that now legs are on a spectrum and we can't say anything at all about how many legs a person has. Who knows? They could be a centipede. They could have 100 legs. No, we know human beings have two legs. If a human is born without two legs, something went wrong. They were supposed to have that second leg. Something went wrong. If you meet a person on the street who only has one leg, maybe they had an accident. Maybe they were in war. Maybe they were in a car accident. Maybe they had cancer. A leg was cut off. But you know that something went wrong because by their nature, they're supposed to have two legs. Same thing for a woman. A woman by her nature can get pregnant. A man by his nature never can. So if you meet a woman of childbearing age, say she's 28 years old, and she can't get pregnant, you know automatically that something has gone wrong. And she can go to the doctor and find out what that thing is, even if they can't fix it. So that proves that women by their nature can get pregnant, because the simple fact that she can't shows you that there's something wrong. This is what is known as the exception that proves the rule. Whereas if a male with a penis can't get pregnant, no doctor on earth is going to run tests to see what's wrong with him, because they already know it's that he's a male, and there's only male and female, those who can get pregnant and those who can't. So that's it.
I really enjoyed that exchange. I thought it was cordial, and I must say, I'm not here to demonize, especially this individual here. He seems like he's just misguided, truly hurt. And we got to be careful that we don't demonize people. Now, there are some people that we absolutely should eviscerate with facts and truth. And in some instances, satire. You heard people laughing in there. And the reason they laugh is because it's so obvious that it's like satire, the arguments Matt was making. And so that is exactly what we're addressing here at Chronicles of Clarity, trying to clarify that, hey, yes, this is an idea that is deadly. It's allowing the mutilation of kids, and that is not hyperbole. That is the absolute truth. We should do everything we can to rise against it. And at the same time, realize we live in a fallen world. Man is inherently sinful, and we've destroyed ourselves in an attempt to try and do exactly what this doctrine says. Be true to yourself. If you're true to yourself, you will end up like this, and that is believing things that are false and that lead to destruction. I appreciate you being here. We thank you for visiting Chronicles of Clarity. Please like, share, and subscribe. And oh, by the way, make some comments below and let me know. Do you think gender's on a spectrum? Do you think the higher levels of biology are the only ones who can explain exactly what Richard Dawkins indeed did explain? Let me know below. Thanks again for stopping by. Check out this video. You might find it interesting.